Hi there and welcome to The Wrap, simple news summaries for busy people, brought to you by myself, Verashni Pillay, and the rest of the Explain.co.za team. This week, student protests at Wits University turned deadly when a bystander was allegedly shot dead by police. The death of the father of three and master's graduate has renewed debate around police brutality in this country. We tell you what's being done and how we must keep the pressure up on authorities. Plus, we have the inside scoop on racism allegations against Eskom CEO Ruyter and how the much anticipated Coming to America movie should have stayed in America. Enjoy this week's edition of The Wrap. First up, our take, a right royal bombshell. Whether or not you're interested in the British royals, it's the interview so explosive it got nearly everyone talking. Former actress and Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle and her husband Prince Harry sat down with America's favorite talk show host Oprah Winfrey. The broadcast on Sunday dropped several bombshells aimed at the firm, as the British Royal Institution headquartered at Buckingham Palace is known. Now, here are some of the allegations that the pair made. One, that Meghan was given a no support by the palace during the British tabloids' vicious coverage on her. Things got so bad she considered suicide. She said she was denied getting psychological help when she asked for it. Two, before they stepped down as senior royals, they learned that their son would not be granted a title and therefore get no security protection, despite the heightened risk the family faced. And third, asked to speculate why that may be, Meghan said in the most explosive claim that someone had several conversations with Harry about how dark their child may be. Oprah's expression in response said it all. Both refused to name the person, but Harry subsequently said it was neither the Queen nor her husband, Prince Philip. In fact, both Meghan and Harry spoke very warmly of their regard for the respected monarch, but were frank about Harry's fallout with his brother and father. Now, the fallout from the interview has been dramatic. The Queen put out a brief statement saying, "The whole family is saddened to learn the full extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Harry and Meghan. The issues raised, particularly that of race, are concerning. While some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. Harry, Meghan, and Archie will always be much loved family members." Now, love them or hate them, there is something powerful about seeing a prominent couple speak out against an age-old institution that by now should change its ways and catch up with the modern world, where mental health is taken seriously and racism is not tolerated. Meanwhile, we've written about how the pairs plan to move to South Africa or similar as a solution to the ongoing pressure they were facing was scuppered, and what it reveals about the powerful forces inside the monarchy often acting against its own interest. Check out our website, Explain.co.za, for more on that. And in the big story of this week, trigger-happy cops are under the spotlight. How on earth did police manage to allegedly kill a bystander at a protest using rubber bullets? And why was such force even needed, given that he was a bystander? That's the question police must answer after the shock killing of Mthokozisi Ntumba on Wednesday, as police tried to control fresh protests that broke out at Wits University. Students are protesting the financial exclusion of about 6,000 students who cannot register at the university this year because of historical debt. Now, Ntumba was shot 3 times at point-blank range with rubber bullets. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, said that it was investigating the incident. Police Minister Pillay revealed during a visit to the family home today that Ntumba was a master's graduate working for the Department of Human Settlements. He leaves behind a wife and 3 children, the youngest still a baby. Pillay told journalists that it was a sad situation to look at and said it is something that you really can't be able to live with as a human being. So why do we have to live with it as a country? As Explain has previously reported, our police brutality is far worse than that in the US, where the Black Lives Matters movement has highlighted systematic abuses. In our case, it's almost always Black lives on the line. For too long, our country's policing leaders have confused a tough approach on crime with disregard for human rights. Now, Pillay says action is being taken. Quote unquote, "The IPID every single month give me a long list of the names of SAPS members that are supposed to be referred to the NPA," he said. He added that they also have started implementing the Farnham Report recommendations, which investigated the Marikana massacre where 34 minors were killed by police. One of the elements where Farnham was very hard on us was the training of police order policing. of public order policing rather, Pillay said, that is currently happening. Well, we think it can't happen soon enough. The student protests themselves are a tinderbox fueled by historic inequality and already brewing tensions over police actions when fees must fall protests first rocked universities in 2015. Pillay seems to be realizing that his trigger-happy approach to policing is not working, and his rapid appearance at the family home shows he and other authorities know how terrible this looks. Let's keep up the pressure as a public till things change and how our policing treats our citizens. Moving on to your briefs, Coming to America should have stayed in America. Coming to America, the sequel to the 1988 classic Coming to America, the first one was T.O. to America, and the second one is To the Number, because it's the sequel, get it? It was one of 2021's highly anticipated blockbusters, but it's turned out to be another tone-deaf attempt by Americans to embrace Africa. The film was released last week on Amazon Prime and mostly panned by reviewers. The filmmakers' efforts took us back to a pre-Wakanda Africa and made us all cringe. While Black Panther did the work to make the fictional African country of Wakanda authentic and pay homage to real African cultures, the Zamunda of the Eddie Murphy movie held none of that nuance. The sequel was haunted with the patriarchy, sexism, and outdated humor of the original, which only worked because it was the 1980s, and quite honestly, we didn't know better. In one silver lining, South African actress Nomzamo Mbatha was one of the film's breakout stars, catching the hearts of global audiences. Local audiences, however, were quite confused when they heard her African accent on screens. We're still trying to locate its origins. If you find them, let us know. Moving on, Swiss voters back a ban on face coverings. It's a regressive move. 51% of Swiss voters favored a ban on face coverings aimed at Muslim women in public, the BBC reported. This comes after a referendum was proposed by the right-wing party, the Swiss People's Party. It's a rather heavy restriction, especially in a country where only 5% of the entire population of 8.6 million people are Muslim, according to research by the University of Lucerne in Switzerland. This research also found that almost no one wears the burqa and all of 30 women wear the niqab. Now, in case you don't know what the difference is between the two, a burqa is a one-piece garment that fully covers the woman's face and body, while a mesh screen covers the eyes. So it's a total covering. A niqab, on the other hand, covers the face fully, but the eyes are visible. A hijab is a scarf that covers the head and neck, according to a lecturer in Middle East politics and Islamic studies. Now, arguments that a Muslim woman's decision to cover her face represents a form of oppression worthy of state intervention is tenuous at best. In reality, the ban is another confrontation with a small Muslim population, following similar bans in Denmark, Austria, France, and others, the BBC reported. This is also something that has followed bans on building minarets, which is the architecture that is used in mosques. Now, thankfully, South Africa is on the other side of this, with our broad acceptance of religious faiths and their choice of dress. Moving on, building a greener Joburg. Johannesburg's electric vehicle rollout may be accelerated with the UK's help. It just gave us 64 million rand to fund 10 green projects. One is ambitiously aiming for all new buildings in Johannesburg to be net zero carbon by 2030 and to support electric vehicle rollouts. The NPO, Sustainable Energy Africa, which is spearheading the vehicle project, proposed the conversion of minibus taxis and buses to electric power, adding that the Rea Vaya bus rapid transit system is also a prime candidate for EV conversion. Can you imagine coasting along in a silent taxi? Would it even be the same? However, this will require sufficient solar power charging stations throughout the country. Now, electric vehicles are not new to South Africa. You may have already seen a few. BMW and Nissan's Leaf are the pioneers of our country's EV project, while Jaguar's Land Rovers are also in the mix, Bloomberg reported. The UK's generosity is a bid to drive climate recovery. The British High Commissioner Nigel Casey said, "I am delighted that we are launching this range of projects aimed at supporting green, resilient and inclusive economic growth in South Africa." We can't help but agree. And now, it's not all good news on the energy front. The job of Eskom CEO remains one of the toughest in South Africa. The man previously in the hot seat, Phakamani Radebe, resigned in July 2019, citing unimaginable demands which were impacting his health. Word has it that he was carried out on a stretcher twice after having collapsed. So it's been a relief to watch current boss Andre de Ruyter last this long, while doing a fairly decent job of steering clear of politics and doing the slow and laborious work of trying to clean up the train wreck of a utility. As part of these efforts, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan probably thought he was doing de Ruyter and others a favor by making Solly Chittanangano its Chief Procurement Officer. Now, this is called the CPO. It's an important role, given how procurement is where things went so wrong for Eskom previously, with it being milked by people like the Guptas. After all, Chittanangano built a name for integrity when he blew the whistle on the Limpopo textbook scandal in 2012 as acting CFO of the Limpopo Education Department. The act earned him applause, and he went on to become the Chief Director of Governance at the National Treasury. But he seemed to struggle making a real dent in Eskom's spend on goods and services, and this led to a breakdown in relationship between him and de Ruyter, with de Ruyter finally putting him on suspension. De Ruyter said, "We spend 140 billion rand buying goods and services. We are paying more than what we should be paying. 2 billion savings is not a lot." That's what he was asked to do. It's about 4% of 140 billion. That is exceptionally modest, but Solly has not delivered what was asked of him. Now, Chittanangano has responded by accusing de Ruyter, who is a white man, of racism. He has based this on what he alleges is de Ruyter's treatment of black suppliers. Eskom's board has said it will appoint an independent senior counsel to investigate the racism claims against de Ruyter. It's a hell of a complication to an already complicated matter. If de Ruyter really is guilty of racism, there should be consequences. But if he isn't, it would be terrible to lose him. Similarly, Chittanangano is clearly a man of integrity. In an ideal world, our public service would find a suitable place for them both. Our accountability monitor this week: Steinhoff execs face German justice. Do you remember the 2017 Steinhoff scandal? If you didn't, senior executives at the furniture and household goods multinational blatantly cooked the books to falsely inflate profits. Its CEO, Marcus Jooste, promptly resigned, but 4 years later has yet to be charged. It was South Africa's largest ever private sector fraud and accounting scandal, and the lack of arrests have made the public feel pretty cynical about corruption being tackled in the private sector. After all, this isn't just a case of some rich shareholders losing some dough. Given the size of Steinhoff, most pension funds would have had some exposure to its stock and suffered when 200 billion rand was summarily wiped off the company's market capitalization in the wake of the scandal. This means ordinary people like you and me and anyone with a pension or investment product in South Africa would likely have been affected. But now Germany is leading the way. The country has charged 3 top executives involved for accounting fraud, which carries a maximum of 3 years in prison. Now, the German system does not allow for those charged to be named, but it's a fair bet that one of those is Jooste, who may finally taste justice for what he did. Steinhoff was founded in Germany but later moved its headquarters to South Africa. It has a primary listing on German's Frankfurt Stock Exchange and a secondary listing on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So what's taking South Africa so long to investigate them, like the Germans have done? Well, consider that German public prosecutors had to conduct a 6-year investigation before getting to this point. South Africa's investigation started later, and our National Prosecuting Authority was, of course, decimated by years of state capture and needed to rebuild capacity to put together a winnable case before a judge. There's no point in rushing to prosecution and the case being thrown out. And look, even the German case is going to take time. Extradition proceedings could take 3 to 5 years if fought in court, and let's face it, Jooste is the kind of man who will fight it in court. Meanwhile, there's been fresh unhappiness this week over Steinhoff's donation of 30 million rand towards the investigation into itself. But the NPA came out this week to clarify that this donation was for the police, not the NPA. It will fund auditing firm PwC's forensic report into this whole complicated mess. After all, PwC have done one previously for the company itself. While there are concerns about a possible conflict, there's various measures in place to try to manage it. After all, it's just not that easy to do these kind of financial forensics. I mean, just look how long it took the Germans. Moving on to your week ahead, it is the Grammys on Monday. This year's ceremony is to be hosted by one of our favorite exports, South African comedian and host of The Daily Show, Trevor Noah. The 2021 Grammys came under fire when the nominations were previously announced after The Weeknd, who performed at the 2021 Super Bowl and had one of the biggest hits of 2020, scored exactly 0 nominations. Elton John, who is listed as a co-writer on The Weeknd's After Hours album, criticized the snub, as well as Kid Cudi and Tinashe. All of those songs you couldn't escape due to TikTok's rise in popularity during quarantine are nominated. Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce's Savage remix is nominated for the coveted Record of the Year alongside Doja Cat's Say So. Justin Bieber's TikTok anthem Yummy is also nominated in the Best Pop Solo Performance category. Deceased rappers Pop Smoke and Nipsey Hussle received nominations in the Best Rap Performance category. If you do end up watching it, it's going to be a low-key affair with most attendees dialing in from home, as is the norm in these COVID times. That's it from us at The Wrap, a product of Explain.coza, simple news summaries for busy people. Remember to share the love, tell your friends to sign up with updates at Explain.coza. Till next time, goodbye from us.